This is the Build Wealth Canada podcast, episode number 34.
Welcome to the Build Wealth Canada podcast, where it's all about becoming debt-free, accelerating your wealth, and taking control of your money. Now, here's your host, Cornell Schreiber.
Hey, it's Cornell and welcome to the Build Wealth Canada show. Today's guest is Sean Cooper. Now, there's a good chance that you've already heard of Sean, whether it's on the radio, on TV, or on the internet, as Sean is basically the guy that bought his first house when he was just 27 and paid off his mortgage at 30. So basically in 3 years, he paid off his mortgage. Now, as you may know, especially if you're a listener of the podcast, my wife and I actually also paid off our mortgage early at age 28 and age 29. And you can basically learn more about that by kind of checking out the past episodes of the show. But what makes Sean's story interesting is that he did it in Toronto, which, as we all know, has some of the highest real estate prices in Canada, and he did it under a single income. So that to me is really impressive and commendable. So it was fun to pick Sean's brain about how he did it and the strategies he used and that he recommends to save money and get out of debt. Now, a little bit more about Sean. He's basically an in-demand personal finance journalist. He's a money coach, a speaker, and his articles have been featured in publications such as the Toronto Star, the Globe and Mail, MoneySense, and Tangerine's Forward Thinking blog. Yeah, he also makes regular appearances on national radio, on TV shows to discuss personal finance, real estate, and mortgages. He's also the author of his new book, Burn Your Mortgage, which helps anyone from new buyers to experienced homeowners pay down their mortgage sooner and live well while doing it. So you can follow him on Twitter at Sean Cooper Write, and you can request his services over on his site on SeanCooperWriter.com. All right. And just to make things convenient for you, I'll have the link to Sean's book and his site in the show notes over at buildwealthcanada.ca/34. So just the number 34. Now, another big reason why you should go to the show notes this time is that we have another giveaway. So you can actually enter for free for a chance to win one of the signed copies of Sean's book. So there's no strings attached. Just go to the show notes at buildwealthcanada.ca/34. So just the number 34. Click on the link to enter the giveaway and you're all set. All right. So go do that now if you can, as obviously the giveaway is only for a limited time. So once again, that link is buildwealthcanada.ca/34. So just the number 34. All right. So let's get into the interview with Sean. But first, a quick word from our sponsors. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible, where as a Build Wealth Canada listener, you can pick whatever audiobook you want and actually get it for free. All you have to do is go to buildwealthcanada.ca/audiobook. You sign up for the Audible free trial and you'll literally be able to pick whatever audiobook you want for free from the collection of over 180,000 titles. And there's a ton of new releases there too that you probably want to get your hands on, so I'm sure you'll find something that you like. Now, I love audiobooks. I've been listening to them for over 10 years, and I remember I used to go crazy when I worked in the Toronto area and I had to deal with all the traffic during my commute every single day. It drove me absolutely nuts. And then I actually started listening to audiobooks to try to deal with all that and just prevent myself from going crazy by always being stuck in traffic. And it actually made the commute bearable. It made the drive not stressful anymore because, you get caught up in the book, you get entertained. And if you're like me, you love nonfiction books. So I used to listen to those a ton on my ride to work. So, to try to learn new things like how to invest, how to build my career, how to build a business, etc. So it was kind of like getting a bonus education on wheels while driving. So I absolutely loved it. Now, fast forward a few years, and now that we have a child, I actually find it's actually really hard to find the time to sit down and read a book. Plus I'm staring at the screen all the time when I'm working. So the last thing I want is to be staring at another screen in the evening, to read a book. So with audiobooks, I actually still get to read all the books I want, except now they're in audio form, and I still get to learn a ton by reading all the best investing and business books that I can get my paws on. And I can even listen to them while doing chores like, mowing the lawn or washing dishes. So even the most mundane tasks aren't so bad as you're getting entertained and learning a ton at the same time. So I hope you check them out. It also helps support the show, so I appreciate that if you do. And you can get your free audiobook and free trial by going to buildwealthcanada.ca/audiobook. That's buildwealthcanada.ca/audiobook. All right, that's it. Now let's get into the show. All right, Sean, welcome to the show.
Hi, Cornell. How are you?
Pretty good. Excited to finally have you on. It's been a long time coming, and also it'll be fun to chat because I know we're kind of the two guys that paid off our mortgages pretty early. So it's kind of fun to see sort of how you did it, how I did it, and then kind of see if there's ways to optimize it, and hopefully other Canadians can learn from it as well. So no, this will be fun. It's about time we got together.
Sounds great.
So yeah, like to kick things off, tell us your story and basically the steps you took that got you mortgage free at such a young age. Just assume someone listening has never heard of you before. What's kind of your story? What are the steps you took?
Okay, so I knew that I always wanted to own a house. Growing up, my parents instilled the importance of home ownership in me, and I believe that it's a foundation of having strong finances, owning a house for many people. So that was always at the back of my mind. So even before I graduated from university, I had already started saving my down payment. Not only did I graduate debt-free, I also graduated with money in the bank that I was saving towards my down payment. So I wanted to own a house pretty quickly after university. I was able to land a job at a pension consulting firm. So I had a decent job and started saving as much of my money as possible. I was living at home with my mother during that time and paying rent, but basically all the other money I was putting towards my down payment. So I started looking at a house, to buy a house at age 24, but the Toronto real estate market was super competitive back then. I mean, I didn't think it could get any worse, but, it has gotten more competitive these days. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yes, so I ended up actually looking till age 27, and that's when I finally found my house. It took nearly 3 years of house hunting because every house that I wanted got like 10 offers, and it was really frustrating. And to be honest, if I hadn't have bought my house at age 27, the house that I own now, I would have just given up because it was definitely pretty discouraging. Almost 3 years of trying to buy a house and failing every single time. So I bought my house at 27 years old. It was a house in the suburb areas of Toronto. I paid $425,000. It was a 3-bedroom bungalow with a basement apartment. Prices back then were a lot more reasonable. This was August 2012, so approaching my 5-year anniversary of being a homeowner, and I ended up having a down payment of 40%, $170,000, and that left me with a mortgage of $255,000. So I was just happy to be a homeowner at that point in time, but then I'm like, I don't want this owner's mortgage hanging over my head. Like $255,000 for one person is a lot to handle. Like my mother, when she bought her house many years ago, like she paid $190,000 for her house in Toronto. My mortgage was more than the whole house was worth. So
even with a big down payment, right?
Exactly. Even with a 40% down payment, it left me with a massive mortgage. So, I at the back of my mind, I thought, what if interest rates go up? They're super low now. Might as well take advantage and pay down my mortgage as fast as possible. So I was able to pay off my mortgage in a little over 3 years by age 30. And how did I do that? I did that in several ways, basically by boosting my income and decreasing my expenses. So I boosted my income by working a part-time job, a supermarket. I was a vegetarian, but I still worked in the meat department, so that shows how determined I was. I also was a personal finance journalist. I was able to double my income by doing that. So essentially I had pretty much 2 careers. I was working at the pension consulting firm as well as a personal finance journalist. Also became a money coach, and on top of that, if I wasn't busy enough, I became a landlord, and I lived in the basement of my house and rented up the upstairs. I wanted to be even more ambitious because if I had rented out the basement, I would have only earned $800, but by renting out the upstairs, I doubled that and earned $1,600, and I was just one person living on my own. Why did I need a house with 3 bedrooms and 2 bathrooms, and I'm like never home at all, so it just didn't make any sense at all. And I had always lived in basements like in other places like with my parents, so it wasn't much of an adjustment. I mean, the basement apartment's like over 1,000 square feet. It's bigger than most condos, so it's not like living in a dungeon by any means. But also, as I mentioned, I also live frugally, so I didn't take any extravagant vacations. I didn't go on those weekend trips to Miami or Hawaii or anything like that. I just kind of was frugal and did like day trips to Niagara Falls and other areas in Ontario. And I was also careful with my food spending. It definitely helped that I was a vegetarian, so I was able to spend about $100 a month on groceries, and I cycled everywhere. I didn't own a vehicle, So by doing all those things together, I was able to pay off my 30-year mortgage in only 3 years. And to celebrate, I had a big mortgage burning party, which is pretty much how it sounds. I invited all my friends, and I had a speech prepared, and I took my mortgage papers and lit them on fire, and CBC just happened to be there, and the story aired on CBC's The National, and Peter Mansbridge introduced the story, and it kind of went viral after that. So then, the story got covered all around the world, from the United Kingdom to Australia. Even Dave Ramsey had me on his show to do my debt-free scream. So it definitely got a lot of coverage, and that's pretty much it.
Very neat, very neat. Yeah, so a couple follow-up questions. No, that was really interesting. So when you mentioned it took you 3 years to to actually be able to purchase, right? Just because of how competitive it was. So during that time, were you basically so before you started searching, you obviously made sure you had enough for the down payment. What was your kind of, when did you know you hit your down payment target? Were you going for the 20% so you didn't have to do the CMHC insurance, or what was your whole kind of strategy there?
Yes, I definitely didn't want to have to pay CMHC insurance, so I was happy when I hit the 20%, but then I just kept saving money, and I would have been happy to buy a house when I was 24 years old, but that just wasn't an option. And the funny thing is, I did put offers in on 3 houses, and one of the houses I would have gotten, but I actually, it was down to me and another buyer, and I actually offered more than them, but because I put conditions in my offer, condition of financing and home inspection, and they didn't put any conditions at all, I lost the house. And that's something I talk about in my book, because I'm not saying people should never put in conditions, but perhaps you could get pre-approved for a mortgage ahead of time, or you could get an inspection ahead of time, and that way you could do a clean offer. Because I was definitely kicking myself when I finally found what I thought was my dream home, and then I lose it because of that stuff. So hopefully other people can avoid having a situation like that happen to them.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's pretty rough. And especially now, right, with the way the markets are, how competitive they are, I think those tactics are pretty, kind of ways to make your offer more attractive it seems pretty critical these days, right? Because it does seem like we're getting into a lot of these multiple offer scenarios. At least I know in Kitchener we are. In Toronto, from what I hear, is even worse. And by worse, I mean even more so competitive. So I don't know if that's still the case, but is it still pretty crazy over there?
It's because of the 16-point plan that the Ontario government brought in. It's kind of cooled the real estate market. There was a rush of listings when there were rumors that the government was going to bring in cooling measures, and then everything kind of went to a standstill. My sister is a real estate agent, so I can kind of check in with her. But I don't think there's going to be a massive correction or anything. I just think people are kind of sitting on the sidelines, and then the market's just going to pick up again. I don't think it's sustainable that we're getting over 30% year-over-year price increases. That's definitely very worrisome, but I think it's probably going to be in the maybe 10 to 20 range, or maybe below 30%.
For sure.
It's funny, looking back at 2012, I remember when it was 7 or 8% price appreciation, I thought, my goodness, that's crazy. Can't it get any worse? And now it's in the double digits, so that doesn't look so bad.
And that's the thing, right? You get these high numbers, plus you're leveraged, right? Because you've got the mortgage, so it's kind of,
exactly.
you're getting these pretty nuts rates of return, and then it goes up even more than that, and it's like, what's going on? No, I know what you mean. I had these models built out in Excel because we have a rental now, and for all the appreciation and stuff, and then just over the last little while, it's just crazy. I mean, it totally changed the numbers completely, because who knew that things would escalate to this level where the appreciation is so intense. It's it feels good. Whenever I'm around someone that's renting, I don't bring up kind of real estate at all, because it's like, I'm like, to my homeowner friends, we chat about it and we're just kind of enjoying the wave we're riding, and then and then to anyone that's renting, I'm just kind of, let's not anger people, right? Because some people are trying to buy, but it's like they're getting priced out of the market, or they're kind of in your scenario, right, where they keep bidding on houses and they get outbid, or for whatever reason, and it's just stressful and annoying. And so no, for sure. I just kind of want to get a glimpse of your kind of process, right? So you said you had 20% down before you officially started looking, is that right?
Yes, and then I just kept saving my money because I wanted to buy a house, but it just wasn't possible because it was so competitive.
That's right. And then when you were saving, when you were hunting, right, for those 3 years, where did you keep your money to keep it safe? What was your preferred financial vehicle of choice?
I was basically keeping it in a high interest savings account. I didn't want to put it in like mutual funds or index funds because if there was some sort of stock market crash like 2008, I could lose 30% of my down payment. So, I could have made more money by doing that, but I didn't want to risk it, so I kept it somewhere safe.
Oh yeah, for sure. When you're saving for a down payment, you definitely shouldn't be putting it into equities, right? If you're looking to buy it kind of in the short term. Now, did you do like a high interest savings account through TFSA, or did you just have as a regular non-registered account?
I took full advantage of the RSP home buyers plan.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And then I also did a tax-free savings account and maximized that. And then the rest of the money, I just kept it outside, like in a non-registered plan in my high-interest savings account with like one of the online banks.
Gotcha. So did you actually, because you wouldn't have maxed out your TFSA and your RRSP, right, when you were saving for your mortgage, right? So like what made you decide to keep some in a non-registered, and just for all the listeners that aren't kind of familiar with the term. So when I say non-registered, it basically means not your RRSP and not your TFSA. So basically just like a regular bank checking account is considered non-registered. So basically you're keeping money in there. There's no sort of tax advantage to having money in a non-registered account as opposed to like a TFSA or an RRSP. So if you're kind of new to this, that's kind of what we're talking about. So but there's contribution limits, right, on TFSAs and RRSPs. So you're saying you still had some money in a non-registered account?
Yes, because with the home buyers plan, you can do up to $25,000, and then with the TFSA, the contribution room's over $40,000 now, but back then it wasn't that much, and then I had a $170,000 down payment altogether, so I couldn't possibly. I could have put more money in my RSP than $25,000, but then I'd get a big tax hit, and I would lose the room forever. So it doesn't make sense to do that. So I just kept it in like a regular high interest savings account.
Oh, okay, that makes total sense. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, did you hit your cap? Because that's kind of the only reason I would see why you would kind of move to non-registered. But you basically did hit it because of the home buyers plan and the TF. And yeah, that's a good point, right? Because now, like, time of this recording, it's over, like the TFSA is over 50K, right? But back then that wasn't the case. So, so no, that's a good point. And you had an insane amount of down payment, so you needed to put it somewhere, right? Yeah, no, for sure, that makes total sense. Okay, no, that's great. And you said CBC was there. Now, did you actually reach out to them, or did you just kind of get lucky that they just happened to be there?
So, funny story. They actually, a reporter for CBC, Sophia Harris, reached out to me because she was doing a story on super savers, and it was going to be like a story with me and a few other people who were good at saving money. She just kind of found my writing online somewhere and heard about like maybe on $1 Million Journey, something like that, about some of the financial goals that I'd set for myself. And then I just kind of told her, I had this goal of like, paying off my mortgage as quickly as possible. I'm trying to pay it off by age 30. And then she's like, well, that's interesting. We were looking at perhaps doing like a video like piece for the story as well. And then when I was kind of telling her more about it, she's like, this sounds like a good enough to be like its own standalone story. So, lo and behold, just because I kind of just briefly mentioned that during our conversation, she turned it into a whole story on its own. And then they ended up filming the piece. And the funny thing is, CBC actually held the story for about a couple months, and it was almost getting towards the like November, and we were filmed outside with no coats on. So if it aired on the national and it was like snowing outside and no one was wearing coats, then it wouldn't make sense. So she was basically pressuring, like saying, you need to air the story now or else it's not going to make sense anymore. So, they finally aired the story, and then it kind of like, went viral after that. I mean, I think CBC thought it was just going to be, a small story, but, it ended up being one of the most viewed stories in the business section of that year. So
I heard about that. Yeah, no, that's fantastic, and it's such a nice, it's a good story too. I mean, for many reasons, right? But I guess from a journalistic perspective too, it's the burning, like the actual burning of mortgage papers. It's a pretty, you can really make that dramatic too, right? And because it's like like mortgage papers aren't that exciting, right? But burning mortgage papers, it lends itself to the visual.
A fun fact, I was just going to tear them up, but they're like, that's not good enough. You have to light them on fire for the camera. So
yeah, tearing up isn't nearly as exciting as this flame. Just yeah, that's awesome. That's a good story. That's really, really good. No, so that's great, and yeah, that's funny. Like I didn't realize the whole timing thing with the coats and everything. That's pretty funny. Mm-hmm. So yeah, you're right. People would be like, "Oh, this is rigged. It's not even. Why are they wearing shorts? It's winter. This is this is staged or whatever." Right? People would get their you get the naysayers coming in. So no, that's a great story. That's perfect. Yeah. So let's talk about your book a bit. So kind of tell me about the moment when you realized that you need to write a book. What basically motivated you to write it in the first place?
Okay, so as I was talking about, the CDC story kind of went viral, and I enjoyed my 15 minutes of fame, so to speak, but I wanted to kind of, I guess, take advantage of that opportunity. I didn't just want it to be kind of a flash in the pan, and I also wanted to help with financial literacy as well as help millennials and other first-time homebuyers get into the market, because I read a story recently from the Huffington Post that said, millennials and other home buyers are affected by like news headlines when they read them in the newspaper. Like, do you really think it's that encouraging to buy a house when you're reading about how housing is so unaffordable and the average house in Toronto and Vancouver are over $1 million? I don't think so. I mean, I remember when I was buying a house, like I would read all these articles about how expensive housing was and all the crazy bidding wars, and I just felt like giving up. I mean, I honestly don't know why I still kept trying to buy a house, but I kind of wanted to have a positive message about real estate rather than having a message that's basically saying real estate's so darn expensive. So that was my main motivator for writing a book. I mean, it was something that was always on my bucket list of things to do, but I wanted to basically write a book that gave encouragement to people to get in the housing market, and I also wanted to write something that was easy to understand and kind of showed my journey as a homeowner and helped educate people so that they didn't repeat the same mistakes that I made, because I certainly, made mistakes along the way, and I didn't want to see people make the same mistakes, because buying a home is, for most people, the single largest financial transaction of their life, your lifetime. And these mistakes that you make can cost you hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands of dollars. So, I'm trying to encourage people, and once they decide that buying a house is right for them, help them avoid some of the pitfalls that I may have fallen into.
Gotcha. Sounds good. And so I mean, you talk about some of the mistakes you make. What were kind of some of the sort of the most substantial mistakes you'd say you made that you learned a lot from, and that you would want kind of other Canadians to know about so that they don't repeat the same kind of thing?
Okay, well, I mentioned earlier that I was putting in all these conditions in my offer when I didn't realize that, when you're in multiple offer situations, it's not a good idea necessarily to have a ton of conditions. I mean, you can pretty much put in a condition for anything. You could put in a condition for financing, home inspection. You could put a condition in saying, I have to sell my house first or else I'm not going to buy your house. You could basically put in anything, but these conditions actually end up costing you money and can make you lose your dream home. So, definitely be careful with all these conditions that you put in, because it makes your offer that less attractive. And a mistake that I didn't make myself, but that I see many people make, is that they basically go in and get pre-approved for a mortgage, and let's say the bank says, oh, you can spend up to $800,000 on a house. Well, the key is up to $800,000. You don't have to spend $800,000, but people kind of see that number and then they go and spend $800,000, or they spend even more, maybe
right.
$810,000 or $815,000, and then they're stretched totally financially, and their house basically seems like a prison with their mortgage as a life sentence, and they're house rich but cash poor. They can never afford to go on a vacation, and what if mortgage rates go up? Then they might be in risk of defaulting on their mortgage. So I would definitely recommend that you leave yourself some sort of buffer, and if you're approved for a maximum amount like $800,000, maybe you only want to spend $750,000 or $700,000. Take the time to crunch the numbers and see how much your monthly mortgage payments would be and how much all the other carrying costs would be, such as utilities, home insurance, and property taxes, and then see if you could really afford that house on a monthly basis. And if you're renting right now, perhaps you could kind of create a mock budget for a house and put that money aside in a savings account for a few months and see if you're able to handle it. And if it's a struggle for you financially and you don't enjoy skipping going to restaurants and going on nicer trips, then maybe home ownership is not for you. But at least it's better to know that ahead of time rather than when you're a homeowner and you realize that you don't like having this extra financial responsibility.
That's an amazing tip. I couldn't agree more. That's such a good like if I was to think kind of the sort of 80-20 rule, what's kind of the thing that's going to make the biggest impact. I can't think of a better one than what you just said. That's a really that's a really great point for sure. I think the thing too, kind of just to add on to that, I mean, if like you use the $800,000 example. The thing too is, if you take a mortgage all that big, and let's say now you're really stretched from a cash flow perspective, you've got like, let's say $100 of, left over at the end of the month after paying for, all, your groceries, your mortgage, your everything. You're just kind of living at this, you're basically, living the paycheck to paycheck at that point, right? I mean, keep in mind too, you should also be saving for retirement, right? This isn't, and if you're going to have this mortgage for, over the next 30 years and you're already stretched to the point where you're not able even to put anything away for your retirement, I mean, that's a pretty significant thing, right? You don't want to just have a house and then no investments at all, and then you're in you're 55 and you're kind of, I barely have anything saved up for retirement and I'm supposed to retire in 10 years. I mean, that's a pretty big landmine you just stepped on. So that's kind of another thing I think that's pretty critical, right? And then you hear, people talk about, the house is kind of my number one sort of investment, but I mean, you're going to need a roof over your head regardless of where you live. So you can't just count on your primary residence to be a place to live and to fund your entire retirement, right? You're not renting it out. It's not like you're getting cash flow from it on a monthly basis. You still need to buy some food. So anyways, I could go on all day about that stuff, but I'm just saying I couldn't agree more. And there's so many. It's, I would say, one of the biggest landmines you can step on as someone looking to buy a house. So we couldn't be more in sync when it comes to that kind of perspective. So thanks for sharing that. All right, just a quick reminder from our sponsor Audible that you can get your one free audiobook download by going to buildwealthcanada.ca/audiobook. That's buildwealthcanada.ca/audiobook. You'll be able to pick from their library of over 180,000 titles. And there are some fantastic audiobooks that I've been a huge fan of for years, such as The 4-Hour Workweek, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and Canada's own Andrew Hallam and his book, The Millionaire Teacher, where he basically talks about how he invested on a teacher's salary to become a millionaire and many, many more. So once again, you can get your free audiobook by signing up for the free Audible trial by going to buildwealthcanada.ca/audiobook. That's buildwealthcanada.ca/audiobook. All right, and now back to the show. Speaking of housing prices, kind of, and where they are and how high they can be right now too, it seems like there's kind of a bit of a frenzy sort of in the real estate market right now. Do you still think it makes sense for millennials to buy a home as opposed to, for example, renting for a lot less money than what it would cost them to carry a home, and then basically investing their excess cash flows in the stock market, for example?
Okay, so I mean, I don't mean to kind of, give a wishy-washy answer, but I think it all depends because, you can't say all millennials' financial situations are the same.
Right.
I think it mainly depends on, your job and career situation because if you just graduated from college and university and you don't know what you're going to have for breakfast, let alone, what career you're going to have in the next, 6 months or year's time, like you just started a job and you don't know if you going to stay at this company for the long term. I don't think rushing out and buying a house makes sense. But once you find yourself a stable career and perhaps you're ready to settle down, or even if you're not, and your finances, like you have a stable job, you're not working on contract or you're not working precarious employment, and you're able to actually save enough money for a down payment, and you're, willing to stay put for at least 5 years' time, like let's say you got a job opportunity to go overseas, or you're kind of looking at opportunities to maybe travel around the world and get different opportunities in different continents or countries, then buying a house wouldn't make sense in that instance. But once you're ready to stay put at least for the next 5 years or 10 years, then that's when I think that home ownership makes sense. And for millennials buying a house in cities like Toronto or Vancouver, I definitely think that it can be intimidating because house prices are going up faster than people can save, and they're at risk of being priced out of the market. So I would say in markets like that, aim for, like I myself had at least a 20% down payment, but in cities like Toronto and Vancouver, it's just not realistic. So I would say aim for a 10% down payment, and at least the CMHC fees aren't as high as if you just have a 5% down payment, and at least you have some equity, because if house prices were to fall like 5% and you only had a 5% down payment, including closing costs, you'd actually find yourself underwater. So I think it's good to give yourself a bit of buffer room by having a 10% down payment.
Mm-hmm. For sure. No, that's a great tip. Yeah, I know we did the 20% when we kind of bought our first house, and and future houses as well. And yeah, just kind of like what you did, right? We wanted to avoid the CMHC insurance. And yeah, no, I like your point. I mean, with the whole about not just rushing to buy a house, I know that's kind of always one of my biggest mistakes was we rushed out and bought a house immediately, my wife and I, immediately after university. And it was a mistake because a year later we ended up moving back to kind of our hometown. So, and you obviously you're not supposed to buy a house if you're going to move within a year, because you're going to lose money on because of transaction costs, things like that. Unless real estate prices are skyrocketing, but generally that doesn't happen. So you really shouldn't depend on that. But yeah, I know that was a kind of a big mistake that sort of we made. And so yeah, whenever I kind of talk to other sort of millennials, it's that you want to kind of sample the area first, you want to sample the city, you want to sample the career path before you really commit. And by commit, I mean, buying a home, because then you're kind of stuck there. And yeah, you could sell it, but then you're going to sell it at a loss. If like you said, if you're moving within 5 years, in less than 5 years, there's a good chance you're going to lose money. So no, that's a great, that's a really, really good tip. Yeah, because I guess you really don't know. I mean, you might not like the industry that you're in. You might not like the area you're in. You might not like, we were in the GTA and then we're like, we actually like the smaller cities. So we moved, you know what I mean? And you don't really know until you try it. So it's kind of, I couldn't agree more. We're not really having a very confrontational conversation here, Sean. It's like I'm just you're like echoing what I believe as well, so it's kind of not a lot of angry back and forth or anything, but that's
guess you're preaching to the choir pretty much.
Yeah, pretty much. So but yeah. But anyways, no, that's great. Thanks for sharing that. And then, are there some creative ways that you recommend Canadians and millennials in particular can get into the real estate market, especially considering that, if you are a millennial, chances are, your income and your savings aren't probably enormous at this point, especially if you're kind of just, fresh out of university, college, whatever the case may be. How can you get in there? Do you have any sort of creative ways or ideas?
Yes, definitely. I mean, the first option, of course, would be the bank of mom and dad, and a lot of people say that that's actually a major force that's driving the real estate market with this crazy price appreciation, because boomers have all this equity in their house, and then they're taking out home equity line of credits and giving that money towards their millennial children. So if your parents are in the financial position to help you with your down payment, perhaps they won't give you your entire down payment, but, if they could perhaps top it up so you could reach the 20% down payment and not pay any CMHC fees, then that would be nice. And, if they're not able to give you any sort of financial help, perhaps they could co-sign on a mortgage for you if you're having trouble qualifying. So that's one creative way to get into the market. Another way is by buying with family or friends. So, for example, you might be able to buy a property with a sibling, such as a brother, sister, or even an aunt or uncle, and by having two incomes together to qualify for the mortgage and having down payment from both people, it makes it that much easier to afford a house in in expensive real estate markets like Toronto and Vancouver. And, buying with friends is kind of a newer trend. And I would definitely say make sure that you're buying property with somebody who's reliable and have an agreement drafted with a lawyer, because somebody will want to sell their share of the property eventually, and you want to have an exit strategy. You don't want it to be a surprise and then perhaps end the friendship or lead to hurt feelings. So I definitely make sure that you have something professionally drafted by a lawyer. And in terms of basically saving a down payment, which is the most difficult part about getting into the real estate market, there are several creative ways. For example, if you have a condo, you could rent out one of the spare bedrooms on Airbnb or rent it out to a roommate. And if your parents aren't able to help you financially, perhaps they'll let you move back home and perhaps pay some sort of room and board or do some sort of chores around the house so that you don't have to pay market rent, and then save as much money as possible. And if you're able to perhaps save on rent, like let's say you're living in an expensive downtown condo and spending $2,000-3,000 a month on rent, perhaps you could move to a less a less, I don't know, flamboyant place, and kind of move to perhaps like a basement apartment in the suburbs, and then you could spend less money on rent and then save that extra cash flow towards a down payment. So those are just some of the creative ways that you can get into the real estate market. And I recently heard that Meridian Credit Union actually had a mortgage specifically designed for people buying properties together with other parties. So I think financial institutions are definitely listening to the realities of how it is challenging to buy a house in more expensive markets. So, certainly don't throw in the towel. And I go through some of these examples in my book, so definitely check that out.
No, those are great. That's a lot of actionable tips for sure. So I mean, speaking of just mortgages in general, can you tell me a little bit more about the internal dialogue that you had in your head, basically with yourself, when you were deciding whether you should pay off your mortgage quicker or whether you should be investing that money instead? So this is once you actually purchase the home.
Yes. So, people have told me many times, you were foolish to pay down your mortgage so quickly. You should have invested your money and only pay off the minimum of my mortgage. But I paid down my mortgage quickly for a few reasons. One of them is that your mortgage offers you a guaranteed rate of return. Unlike the stock market, you don't know what rate of return you're going to get. You could get plus 10 rate of return this year, and then you could get minus 20 next year. You really don't know. So I prefer, the guaranteed rate of return of your mortgage, which is whatever your mortgage rate is. And as I alluded to earlier, mortgage rates are near record lows right now. So instead of using that as an opportunity to borrow as much money as you can and get in debt, use it to your advantage to pay down the biggest debt of your lifetime, your mortgage. Because let's say mortgage rates went up in the future when your mortgage came up for renewal. That means more of your money would go towards interest rather than principal. And today, with mortgage rates as low as they are, about 50 cents on the dollar goes towards your principal when you first take out your mortgage. But if we went back 10 years' time, only about 25 cents on the dollar went towards your principal. So as you can see, if you're super focused, you can pay down your mortgage quickly and, definitely take advantage of the low rates. And speaking of interest rates, if you pay off your mortgage in 25 years, once interest is included, you could end up spending almost double the initial purchase price of your house. But if you pay down quicker, you'll save yourself thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars in interest. So that's another reason. And the last reason, which was the main reason that I decided to pay on my mortgage sooner, was financial freedom, because once you have that mortgage paid off, you no longer have that cash flow going towards your mortgage, and you just have to pay for the upkeep of the house as well as the utilities, and then you can do whatever you want with that cash flow. You can start saving towards another property, or you could use that money to save towards retirement, decide to take more trips. Basically, you have that financial freedom in order to do what you want with that cash flow going towards your mortgage. So imagine if you had an extra $2,000 a month. I mean, what would you do with that? That's the great feeling of having your mortgage paid off. You have that extra cash flow to do whatever you please with it.
For sure, yeah. And then, yeah, I mean, in terms of the financial freedom, I totally see where you're coming from. I know I've interviewed a fair bit of financial planners, and I kind of study this stuff for fun. And sort of the most one of the most recurring consensus that I hear amongst professionals that basically do this for a living is that, yeah, when you are in that sort of retirement phase, so you're financially independent, let's say, they do recommend that you have your mortgage fully paid off at that point, because then you don't have this cash flow drain every single month, and so that just gives you a lot of stability, especially if you're not working anymore, right? You don't have that sort of income coming in from your regular salary, and you never know what the markets are going to do. You never know what the interest rate's going to do. So it is kind of a key piece of kind of retirement and financial freedom. So no, I totally. I know what you mean, and I totally get the whole, because I'm assuming you're looking to be financially free as soon as possible. Like that's kind of your next goal, or maybe you're there already. I don't know.
Well, I'm kind of there already. It depends on your definition of financial freedom, which I guess we'll go into in another question.
Sure.
But basically, I have enough money so that, basically I have enough money from my tenants paying the rent that covers more than it covers all the expenses of the house, including utilities, home insurance, and property taxes, and actually make a profit from that. So if I wanted to, I could pretty much leave the workforce and sit at home all day and do nothing. But of course, I don't want to do that. I have other goals that I want to achieve, which we'll talk about later. But I am in the position of being financially free, and it's definitely a good feeling to have, especially when we're living in an economy where you don't know if you'll have a job, in a year's time, let alone tomorrow. So, it definitely is a good feeling knowing that you don't have that responsibility of paying a mortgage to worry about anymore.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So you're saying right now, kind of with the rent that you're getting from your tenants, that covers not only all the expenses of the property, but also basically all your Sean expenses. So, your groceries, your internet, your transportation, like all of that. So you could technically totally stop working and you'd be okay.
Yes, exactly.
That's awesome. Well, congratulations then. That's fantastic. Congrats on reaching financial independence. So how old are you now, Sean? I can't remember.
I'm, getting up there. I'm not as young as I was when I burned my mortgage at age 30. I'm 32 right now.
32.
So pushing on 32 and a half.
That's awesome. Yeah. So financial independence at 32. Actually, I crunched our numbers recently, and we're officially financially independent now too. And I'm 32 as well. So we're I guess we're new to the club. So that's awesome. It's good to know others that are kind of in the same sort of in the same boat. So no, that's awesome. Well, one kind of thing, because you mentioned the interest rate savings, which I've heard kind of mentioned before as an argument towards paying down the mortgage quicker, right? So let's talk about that for a minute, because yes, you do save money on the interest because obviously you've paid off your mortgage quicker, so you're not spending that anymore monthly. But I mean, the kind of, I guess, counter argument to that is, well, if you, let's say, put that money into, equities, like a broad market index, ETF, that kind of a thing, you would earn more than what those interest savings are. So you would actually be more positive investing in kind of the markets in that kind of a way. Would you agree with that? Disagree? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think it all comes down to the individual and their what their risk aversion is. Like,
right.
If you're somebody that it puts all their money in a savings account and is scared to put any of their money in the stock market, which, there are more people than you would think after 2008. I mean, a lot of millennials grew up and still have that picture in their mind. If you'd sleep better at night, not having a massive mortgage over your head, that certainly makes sense. And I read a book by fellow author Alex Avery. He wrote The Wealthy Renter, and he makes a good point. Like, when you have this mortgage, it makes you perhaps stay at a job that you may not necessarily like, and you kind of feel tied down to the property because you have this onerous mortgage. But once you have that paid off, then you have a lot more freedom. And a point that I make in the book is that you can always stop investing. The sky is not going to fall, but if you stop paying your mortgage, then it's going to not only ruin your credit history and score and all that. The bank's going to take away your house pretty quickly. So, I prefer paying down your mortgage because it offers you that peace of mind. But for other people, it might make sense. If they're willing to take on that extra risk and invest, then it might make sense. But for me personally, I just preferred, getting rid of my mortgage, and now that it's gone, I'm basically investing all the money, so I'm kind of playing catch up right now.
Right. Yeah, and that's kind of exactly what we did. Is we did the whole it's interesting. Yeah, you mentioned 2008. That's kind of what happened to us. To me at least, it's like I said, fresh out of university, first job, 2008 hits. You see people panicking, losing just obscene amounts of money. And then, I know that kept me out of the investing in equities for quite a few years. That was kind of one of the bigger drivers where I'm like, you know what, this, I don't feel comfortable, this equity thing, based on what I've seen. So I'm going to do the guaranteed thing with the mortgage, right? And so that was kind of one of the, I would say that was one of the main kind of catalysts for doing that. And now kind of in retrospect, I sort of, knowing what I know now, I actually would have invested then because, and we would have been even wealthier, if I kind of took that route, because as you know, things rallied quite nicely, after that time. And, but hindsight's 2020, obviously. So no, it's interesting to hear kind of your, kind of a perspective on it, because it seems like, we both kind of took that route of paying down the mortgage. I just kind of wish I invested it now, but that's just, but that's, like I said, it's hindsight, right? It's you can't go back to when you're fresh out of university and still kind of trying to wrap your head around all this investment stuff. So
you unfortunately don't have a DeLorean to go back in time.
That's right. All right, yeah. So you mentioned basically, you're debt free, you're financially independent now. We talked about kind of your definition of financial independence, and I have the same kind of definition. So we're definitely on the same boat when it comes to that. So now that you're financially independent, how have you decided to structure your investments? How are you set up basically from an investment perspective?
Okay, so I'm basically playing catch up because all my net worth is tied up in my house right now, and I don't have a ton of savings. I mean, I'm only one person. I can't do everything at once. I can't pay off my mortgage, maximize my RSP and my TFSA. It's impossible. I'm not a millionaire or anything, but so basically what I'm doing is as I mentioned in my book, step one of financial freedom is to pay off house. But if all your net worth is tied up in your house, unless you take on more debt through a home equity line of credit, then it's hard to access that money or sell your house. You can't really access that money. So what I'm doing is I'm used to already putting that cash flow aside towards my mortgage. So instead, I'm taking that cash flow and I'm splitting it in half and putting half of the money towards my RSP and half of it towards my tax-free savings account, because, many people think, oh, great, I have my mortgage paid off. I can just, spend my money on whatever I want. But unless you have a gold-plated defined benefit pension plan at work, you need to have some sort of money to retire on, because you can't just sell one of the bedrooms in your house. It's either all or nothing. And imagine paying off your house and then taking on a product like a reverse mortgage and then watching all your equity go poof, vanish like that. I mean, it would definitely be depressing. I don't want to take on a reverse mortgage or take on a home equity line of credit or anything like that. So I'm basically saving that money, and I'm going to be pretty soon I'll be able to maximize my RSP and my tax-free savings account. And then once I do that, I'll just keep maximizing them every single year and saving my money in a non-registered account. So, I mean, it's definitely a good problem to have when you have those accounts, your registered accounts maximized, and you're looking for, extra places to put your money. But yes, that's essentially what I'm doing right now.
For sure. Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Because once we paid it off, I was like, oh, this is great. We're going to have all this extra money every month. And so that lasted like a day. And then after that day, I'm like, wait a minute. This means we're behind on saving for our retirement. Because just like you're right, all the money is in the house, right? So I was like, oh, crap, I really got to get cracking on this investment thing. And so that's what one of the things that prompted the podcast actually being created. Because it was like, okay, let's learn as much as we possibly can. Because now you're going to be pumping a ton of money into investments, especially if you're, like you said, you're used to this certain lifestyle of saving so much for your mortgage. Well, now you take those savings, and now that the mortgage is done, you throw it into your investments. So, so that's interesting. Yeah, so I was in the exact same boat. So yeah, we've been going pretty hard on the investing for several years now, and it's been going good. But yeah, I know exactly I know exactly what you mean. So right now you're still doing just pure RSP and TFSA. You're not doing non-registered yet, I assume, right? Because you're not maxed out yet?
Because I haven't maximized my RSP and TFSA. But one thing that I would recommend is basically automating your savings, because if you just put whatever extra money is left at the end of the month towards your RSP and TFSA, then it makes it hard to save. Like some people, when they see this extra money sitting in their bank account, they just go and spend it. So I would definitely recommend treating it like the forced savings of paying down a mortgage. So basically set up a set amount of money to come out of your bank account, perhaps when your paycheck comes in every week, so that way the money is taken out right away, and treating savings as another line in your budget, rather than just waiting for extra, rather than just using whatever money is left over at the end of the month. That's the best way to save, in my opinion, because most of the time people, when they have the extra money sitting in their bank account, they're tempted to spend it. And in today's cashless society, where you can swipe your credit card or use your smartphones to make purchases in an instant, it's definitely easier than ever to spend. So just automate those savings so that you have less of a temptation to spend.
Definitely. And yeah, the best example I can think of that is the one-click shopping with Amazon, right? Where they've kind of gotten to the point where you can literally set it up so that you buy it with just one click, not even confirmation, no nothing, right? When I saw that, I was like, oh, this is going to be trouble for some people, because it makes it so easy, right? You don't even think twice. Some people will just buy, right? So no, that's interesting. Now you mentioned automating it. So how do you currently automate your investments? Like I'm guessing you're not doing a discount brokerage then, right? You're doing like I guess I won't guess. Tell me what you're doing for your automation.
I'm investing in the TDE series with my RSP and tax-free savings account, and basically have it set up so a set dollar amount comes out of my bank account on a bi-weekly basis. So basically, like twice a month, and I've set it up so that it happens maybe a day or two after my paycheck gets deposited in it. So I basically made it automatic, and then I figure out, this is how much money I want to put in my TFSA and RSP in the entire year, and then I divide it by the number of biweekly periods in the year, and then that's how I figure out exactly how much I'm going to put in. So like I said, I'm already used to having that cash flow go towards the mortgage, so it's not that much of a stretch to have it go towards the RSP and TFSA, because I'm already used to saving that money.
Gotcha. So with TDE series, how far are you? Because I don't use TDE series. I just do a discount brokerage, like just buying straight up ETFs. But how far can TDE series automate it? Will they actually spread the amount that they take from you, or that you put in automatically? Will they automatically do the purchases for you as well?
Yes, they do, but you're responsible for rebalancing your portfolio. Let's say you want to have 30% Canadian equities, 30% U.S. equities, 30% international, 10% bond. Well, sometimes they can get a bit out of whack, so it's your responsibility to rebalance it. But you just basically set up the like pre-authorized purchases from like to go towards each of the different like Canadian, U.S., and international equities and the bonds, and then that money's taken out of your bank account automatically. It's pretty easy.
Right. So the way you have it structured is it's kind of like an automatic bill payment in a way, except the bill payment is really just you're really investing it. It's not like you're shopping or whatever. And then and you're saying with TD series you're able to actually set it up on their back end. We'll say, okay, like let's say you put in, I don't know, like $1,000 a month or whatever, just to keep the math simple. So you could tell TD E-Series, okay, take 500 of that, put in my RRSP, put 500, put in my TFSA, and then once it's in there, I want 30 to Canada, 30 to US, 30 international, 10 in bonds. Is that what, like, you're able to do it to that detailed of a level?
Yes.
Very cool. That's well, you pay more fees for the E-Series, but at least they give you some cool, like a cool feature like that. That's awesome.
Yes, I love it.
So what made you decide to do E-Series as opposed to just ETFs? Because since the ETFs are cheaper.
Mainly because of the dollar cost averaging. I mean, I guess I've heard of some ETFs. You might be more knowledgeable than me, but I heard every time that you buy ETFs, you have to pay some sort of like fee, and it's not really that great for dollar cost averaging. It's more better for putting like lump sums in. So that's the main reason that I did the like E-Series, because I want to put in like a recurring amount, like every week or every 2 weeks. So from a fee standpoint, I thought that made sense. But then I've heard like some ETFs you might be able to get around paying the commission or
correct.
But I haven't really looked into that a lot. So, it might make sense for me, but I'm pretty happy with the E-Series so far. So, I'm not ready to move my money or anything like that.
Sounds good. Yeah, like, so to answer that question, basically, us right now, there's two providers that I know of that allow you to buy ETFs for free, basically at the time of this recording. So the first one is Questrade, and then the second one is Virtual Brokers. I think Virtual Brokers still does it. I know I had trouble finding it on their site at one point, so I don't know if they removed it or if they put it back. I know Questrade has been doing it pretty kind of consistently. So that's kind of why I personally used Questrade for that reason, because you're able to buy the ETFs for free. And so you are able to do the dollar cost averaging where, you can say, okay, every month I'm going to put in X $1,000. And you don't have to wait to have like 50,000 saved up because you don't want to pay but you don't want to pay big transaction fees. And I guess maybe I'll clarify a bit for some of the listeners that are kind of new to all this. So like generally when you go buy like let's say an ETF or a stock, you'll have to pay kind of a fee basically to do it, and it's usually around $10 to do it. And so that's kind of pretty. I mean, it varies a bit from place to place, but 10 is kind of like I would say the average. And so what, like for example, Questrade does is you still have to pay it when you sell. You still have to pay like the $10 or whatever it is when you sell it. But if you're investing long term, you're realistically doing very, very little, if any, selling. So you're just basically you just buy. It doesn't cost you anything. They do charge like a little side kind of fee, but it's nothing. Like it's generally like under $1. Like it's negligible. And then the fees, the MER, so the actual fees, because you're buying ETFs are lower. Because E-Series, correct me if I'm wrong, Sean, but E-Series is technically a mutual fund still, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know all the details about them, but I believe it's basically an index fund.
Right, exactly, yeah. So anyways, if you ever need help on that, let me know. But I've been like that because that was kind of my big concern, because I don't want to pay $10 because I'm like I buy four ETFs every month. So it's like, so that's $40 every month. I don't want to spend $40 every month just on transaction costs. And then when I found out that they do it for free, like that was a no-brainer for me. So anyways, let me know if you ever, I guess, and listeners too, if you have any questions about it, let me know. And as a shameless plug, I know Questrade, they do, like I personally use them, and they do have this thing like a refer a friend program where if you like, I basically have this link with them that if you get them if you sign up to them using my link, then basically they give you free money and I get some too. So I think I get like $25. Like it's nothing big, but it's something. And then you get, I think it's at least 25 and more. The more you invest, like the more you deposit, the more you get. So it's basically free money. So if you do want to do that, reach out to me. I think I have their affiliate link like all over my site too, but like I said, shameless plug, but it's free money, so that way you can have some, I'll have some, and everyone's happy. But anyways, enough with promoting Questrade. But anyways, that's why I went with them, right? Was the free ETFs, because that's a big one. But anyways, that's I just had to mention that because I would feel silly just saying, yes, there are two mysterious discount brokerages, but I'm not going to say who they are. So yeah, no. Anyways, so that's okay. No, that's interesting. Yeah. So you're basically doing basically broad market index investing, but you're doing it through TDE series mutual funds, essentially.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I mean, not to discredit TDE series, because I mean, I know my parents bank with them, and they have some really convenient stuff there. Like I know if you sign up with, like, there's all these cool kind of things and all like these automations like you just told me, right, where they'll automatically split your money up and all this kind of stuff. So it is pretty cool. Like me personally, I'm just like, that's awesome, but I don't want to pay the higher fees, so I'll rather just do it myself and like not have that convenience, but save a bunch of money, right? But it's kind of like to each his own. I'm happy they're at least offering some sort of value and convenience, right? With making it easy to buy. Anyways, that's enough. That's enough of me talking. So that's that. Now, have you ever considered, since you own your house now free and clear, have you ever considered doing something like a home equity line of credit, so HELOC, on your property, basically take some equity out of your property and then use that to invest either in another rental property or in the stock market or anything like that?
Well, I've certainly been approached by that. I mean, people saw my story on the news, and I've been approached by a few financial advisors with different opportunities where I could take out some of the equity and invest it. But while leverages can magnify your gains, it can also magnify your losses. Right. And I'm already financially free. I've already achieved financial independence. So why would I risk it all in order to make more money when I'm already comfortable the way I am? So, I mean, for some people who, are comfortable taking on that extra risk, leveraging might make sense. But for me personally, I have enough money to be happy for the rest of my life. So yeah. I just don't feel like taking on that extra risk personally.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I've been struggling with that a lot lately because I want to, because that got in the same boat, right? I want to leverage. I would like to just take the money because if you're like, let's say you're paying just let's say 3%, right, on a HELOC. And if you do equities, let's say you're getting, averages out long term to like 8% a year. So you're obviously, long term, if you look at historical averages, you're going to be positive. Hopefully, obviously there's no guarantee or whatever, but history supports that. But so from a greed perspective and maximization and efficiency, I totally I'm tempted to do it, but at the same time, I'm kind of in the same boat as you, where it's like we're financially independent now, so why are you taking on this extra level of risk to earn more when you already have enough? So from that part, it doesn't make sense. So I don't know. I've been thinking about this for weeks now. It's been bugging me. So it's nice to hear your perspective because I've got my hand on the trigger to do it, and I'm just like, I don't know if I should do it. Like mathematically, it makes sense, but it's also like, at what point is it just like unnecessary risk, right? Because if you've already reached your goal, why do it? So I don't know. I may have to pick your brain about that some more. It's been I can't stop thinking about it.
When is enough? Like I heard about Elon Musk. He's part of the PayPal mafia, as they call it, and he basically risked all his millions of dollars that he made from PayPal to invest it in Tesla, and he could have gone completely broke. So I don't think I have the same risk tolerance as him, and it's kind of an individual situation and decision. But I sleep a lot better at night. Not having an owner's mortgage over my head, so I'm certainly not going to go and risk everything just to make a bit of extra money when I have more than enough. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right, for sure. Elon's is a prime example of extremely high risk tolerance. Take the PayPal money and shoot it into space, and hopefully it works out kind of deal, right? It's pretty, it's fascinating, but good, yeah. I know what you mean. My risk tolerance isn't as high as his. Isn't as high as his either. Nowhere near it. So are you thinking of buying, now that you kind of have this experience of being a landlord, you have this experience with real estate, you have this experience with mortgage financing, all that fun stuff, are you thinking of buying rental properties, or are you kind of done with that for now, especially considering how expensive everything is now?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of like a bit on the fence about that. So the two reasons I've decided against it is because I think the real estate market is definitely overvalued. Mm-hmm. Like price appreciation of over 30%, like that's crazy as far as I'm concerned, and not sustainable. And I think the government's been tinkering a lot with the market, and I
Right.
honestly don't know what they're going to do in the future. They're the kind of the wild card out there. And also I already have something like over 90% of my net worth tied up in real estate.
Right.
Do I really want to buy another house in the same city or even the same neighborhood and have even more of my net worth tied up in real estate?
Exactly.
I don't think so. So that's why I'm basically taking that cash flow and putting it towards like my tax-free savings account and my RSP. And when I kind of do the math on a rental property, you take on all that extra risk, and you might only make an extra $100 or $200 in profit, or you might actually be cash flow like negative, or you might just be breaking even. And a lot of people, like homeowners, I find that they don't they say, oh, my house has gone up, I guess, 33% year over year because that's what Toronto home prices have gone up. But the thing is, they forget about all the other expenses of home ownership,
right,
such as the big one, like repairs and maintenance. Like, you may be earning $100 a month on this rental property, but what about when you need to replace the roof and the windows and the furnace?
Right.
Like, that's going to cost you a ton of money. And also, you can't just assume that you're going to have dream tenants forever. What if you get tenants that destroy your property, or that don't pay the rent at all? So I mean, that's why I'm really not a fan of buying a rental property. I mean, there are the Scott McGilvrays of the world that have over 100 rental properties, and you can certainly use different strategies by like hiring property managers, but I just prefer having my the rest of my money in something more liquid like investments, because with a house, you have to go through a real estate agent, and there's all those closing costs and all that, and it's not like you can just sell. It's not like a mutual fund where you can just sell it tomorrow and get your money.
Exactly.
It takes 30, 60, 90 days to close the property. So and like I said, I have enough money in real estate as it is, so that's kind of why I haven't invested in real estate right now. I mean, I might keep my house. Like, if I were to get married one day, I might have like my house as an investment property, and then perhaps buy a house with my new spouse. That might be an option, but
right,
that will kind of cross that bridge when it happens. I'm perfectly content just having one property for now.
For sure. No, that makes total sense. Yeah, we're kind of in the same boat. I know we sold off one of our houses recently, and it was kind of for that was one of the big reasons. Was I'm like, wait a minute, this real estate is way too big of a portion of my portfolio. It's like the opposite of diversification, right? so I know exactly what you mean. I'm like, this is, and I mean, there's people that make a lot of money with it, right? Like, we have a kind of real estate agent friend who owns like a bunch of properties kind of in the Kitchener-Waterloo area, and and it's going well for him, and he's making lots of money, I'm sure, and all that fun stuff. But I mean, like you said, it's extremely non-diversified. So there is obviously inherent risk with that, right? And so no, I know what you mean. We kind of did the same thing. We're like, all right, let's sell the one house and just take the proceeds and actually invest them in the markets. Like in equities and all. So yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying, and we literally kind of had the same thing. And yeah, to be honest, I don't know how you can get the math to work. Like, if you want to be a landlord and you want to just buy start at kind of the ground floor and just start with something small, like a single family house. I don't see how you could how the math could possibly work. And I've done the math, and it didn't work several years ago. And now it's nowhere near. I don't even bother doing the math on it, because I know there's no way in hell it's gonna work now. Especially when you consider because the real estate prices have clearly exceeded the increase in rental income. So how can you make the math work? I have no idea.
I mean, a lot of people, like, in terms of the rental property, all that they can afford is a condo, and then the wild card with condos are the condo fees as well as the special assessments. Right. Like, the condo fees certainly go up a lot more than the rate of inflation. I mean, right. I've seen people's condo fees go up like 10% or more, and you don't know what kind of special assessments are going to come up in the future if there's some major repair that they don't anticipate, such as it costing more money to repair the roof or the repaving of the underground parking garage. So I'm just not a big fan of condos for that reason. You could have a property that's cash flow positive, and then suddenly overnight it becomes cash flow negative.
Oh, exactly.
because they up the condo fees, and I mean, I guess the only way that people could justify owning a rental property is because of because of leveraging. Because you put in a small amount of money, let's say like a 10 or 20%, like let's say 20% down payment, and then I guess you're banking on the fact that the property will go up in value in the future.
Correct.
And you're kind of holding on to it for many years. But to be honest, there's no guarantee that real estate is going to go up at this fast pace in the future. And having all that money tied up in real estate and hoping that it goes up at a fast pace in the future, like we're currently experiencing, I think is pretty risky. So that's why I'm kind of that's why I want my money in like regular investments and something liquid, because I just don't think it's good to have all that money tied up in real estate.
For sure. No, I totally agree. And I guess I should clarify, I guess for yourself and for the listeners as well. When I say I don't see how the math could work, I'm talking about purely from a cash flow perspective. So if we take your monthly rental income that you're receiving and we subtract things like, your mortgage principal, your interest, basically your mortgage payments, your property taxes, utilities, condo fees, repairs, basically every single expense that you would incur by owning that property. As a best practice, you should be net positive at the end of the month, right? So if you're bringing in $1,600 after you take away all those expenses, you should still be in the positive. You should not be in the red. So that's what I mean. But when I say, I can't see how the math could possibly work, because like what Sean's saying, right? There's these condo fees, which are kind of this unknown variable, because you never know how much they're gonna go up. You never, and you hear these things too. Like we had friends where they had a condo and they're paying their condo fees, and I guess the condo company mismanaged the money in some way where they didn't have enough in there, for whatever reason, and there was this big, really critical repair that had to get done, and there wasn't enough in their fund, in their account or whatever, to cover the cost. So not only they were forced to pay, like the tenant, like the owners of the condo complex were forced to pay extra money, like thousands and thousands of dollars each, in addition to their condo fees, just to fix this one thing, because the condo company didn't kind of manage things accordingly. Maybe they were undercharging their condo fees, whatever the case may be. But I mean, you've got these like to me, that's a wild card, right? You have no clue what's gonna happen, and yeah. So I don't know how you can be. Like with a single family home, I can't see how you could possibly be cash flow positive in areas like Toronto, even though I haven't done the math on the Toronto real estate, but from what I hear, it's worse than, like, it's more crazy there than it is in Kitchener. And I know in Kitchener, the math, like Waterloo, like the math just doesn't work. It's like you have to either go into student housing, or you basically have to go into multi-unit. And it's like, if you're going into multi-unit, well, now you're not spending $400,000 on a rental property. We're talking like 7-figure investment. So now you've literally got probably all your eggs in one basket, unless you're like multi-millionaire, right? So anyways, I could go on about this for a while, but it's yeah. So no, I just wanted I totally the summary is, I agree with what you're saying, and I totally understand why you're not getting into the rental game further. That's my summary. Anyways, I'll stop my rant. All right, so we talked about the rental property. So yeah, so Sean, tell me what's next for you. You kind of already talked about it a bit, but what's kind of your what are the next steps? You've got the book. What's going on with you in the next, I don't know, near future?
Well, I'm working on getting my work schedule to a more manageable level. Like, I was working sometimes like 80, 90, even 100 hours a week. So I've managed to get it down to about 60 to 80 hours a week. So, it's
Yeah.
kind of baby steps. Maybe I'll get down to 50 hours a week one day, but I don't really know, if that's ever going to happen, to be honest. But I'm trying to kind of achieve a better work-life balance as well. So I'm planning to travel more. I've already gone on a few trips to different places. Like, I went to FinCon in San Diego last year, and
FinCon's
also,
awesome.
Yeah, FinCon was a lot of fun. As well as I've been to Ottawa recently, and I'm planning to visit different places in Canada, like Montreal. Also want to visit Vancouver and San Francisco and Europe. So, I only have so much vacation time at work. So,
Right.
But I have, enough money to do all these things. Like, I could go on 6 trips a year if I wanted to,
Right.
but fortunately with work and all the other stuff, I'm not able to. But, it's great having that, I guess, those choices once you're financially free, being able to do all that stuff. And my next goal is a net worth of $1 million, and I wanted to achieve that by age 35, but I just had my sister do a market comparison of all the different properties to figure out how much my house is worth, and I think I've already hit the $1 million because of
Congrats.
how high housing prices have gone up in Toronto. I definitely didn't think housing prices will go up 33% year over year.
Nobody's model had that in there, had that number in there, 30%.
I think I've already hit the $1 million. I mean, there could be a correction or something, but
Right.
I definitely want to. My next goal is to kind of diversify better, and I'm also offering money coaching for people who would like to follow in my footsteps and burn their mortgage. So that's certainly an option as well. And
Awesome.
the book definitely provides great information, but if you're looking for something that's tailored to your own financial situation, I can certainly help you out with that. So feel free to reach out to me.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, kind of in relation to that, and just kind of to finish things off, tell us more about your book. Tell us more about your money coaching. In terms of the book, what can readers expect to learn from it? I've already started reading it. It's really enjoyable. I especially like you have a bunch of kind of money hacks, money saving hacks, which was pretty cool. And I really liked how you kind of do the whole 80-20 thing, right? Where you're like, well, focus on your mortgage, don't just focus on these little things. I mean, yeah, focus on the little things too, but don't forget that there's these bigger fish that you really have to put this extra focus on. So I don't know, I'm really enjoying it so far, liking your book. But yeah, tell us more about kind of what readers can expect to learn from it. And I guess the money coaching thing as well. Tell us a bit more about that too.
Yes, so with the title like Burn Your Mortgage, some people assume, it's just a book about mortgages and home buying, but it's about so much more than that. In the first part of the book, I actually go over setting yourself up for financial freedom, because if you have a boatload of credit card debt and you're living paycheck to paycheck, then you're certainly not in the financial position to burn your mortgage, let alone save a down payment. So I kind of go through basic financial stuff that people have seemed to have forgotten about over the years, because with today's increasingly cashless society, it's so easy to spend more than you make and get into debt. So I kind of go over some of that. And a big thing that I start the book off with is goal setting, because a lot of people, don't actually set themselves financial goals. Like, goal setting is so useful, whether it's a goal of saving a down payment, I want to save $50,000 down payment in 3 years' time, rather than saying, I want to buy a house one day. Like, one day is probably never going to arrive. So I find it's really useful to set yourself SMART goals, which I go through in the book. And so basically, once you've already come up with your down payment, that's when I really get into the meat and potatoes of the book and go over like some ways that you can actually burn your mortgage sooner. So I talk about, for example, switching your payment to your mortgage payment to accelerated weekly or biweekly, as well as using what I like to call found money, such as your tax refund or your workplace bonus, and putting that towards some of it or all of it towards your mortgage. And I go through examples of how much money that can actually save you. And another big tip that I offer in the book is it's not just a good idea to shop around for your mortgage when you're looking for a mortgage initially. When you get those mortgage renewal papers from your lender, you should definitely take the time to shop around then as well, because your lender's probably not offering you their very best rate when they send you those renewal papers. So definitely take the time to shop around. I would recommend shopping around at least 6 months in advance of when your mortgage comes up for renewal, because your mortgage for most people is the single biggest debt of your lifetime. So even saving yourself like 0.1% or 0.2% could save yourself thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars over your lifetime. And I certainly think it's worth spending, a couple hours on a rainy Sunday afternoon searching around for mortgage rates. And it's so easy these days with mortgage brokers or mortgage websites, mortgage rate comparison websites like Rate Supermarket or Rate Hub or Lowest Rates. It's so easy to use them. So there's really no excuse out there. And the book is basically, what I like to call it is kind of like a a financial like guidebook. I mean, you might not necessarily be experiencing all these things. Like you may not necessarily be ready to buy a house, or you may not be ready to shop for home insurance or hire a contractor. But, once you are ready to make those decisions, you can kind of flip through to the section of my book. And like I've said to many people, this book literally pays for itself, because for $20, I mean, with all the tips in here, I'm sure you'll learn at least a few things and easily save yourself hundreds, if not thousands of dollars. So I definitely think it's money well spent. I mean, Harry Potter is definitely an interesting read, but I'm not sure how it helps you save money. But I can definitely say that my book will certainly help you save money.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Yeah. And I mean, for sure, I'd like to... I mean, I totally agree with when I first started reading your book. I thought, well, I don't know how engaged I'll get. I don't know how interested I'll get in this, because I mean, we already have our mortgage paid off. We already own, the house and everything. So it didn't seem that relevant. But when I started reading it, I thought I actually got really into it, because you do offer all these different money saving hacks. So whether you're a renter or a homeowner or want to be a homeowner, like, it really doesn't matter, or retired. I mean, it doesn't really matter. These kind of, at the very least, like, you're going to save money from these money saving hacks that you kind of basically all these things that you've done yourself, I assume, right? Just to trim these expenses so that you could pay off your mortgage quicker. So, I mean, you use it to pay off your mortgage quicker. Others could use it to take an extra vacation a year, or to save more for the retirement, or to retire early, whatever your goals are. I was very pleasantly surprised how well Sean wrote the book, so that you could benefit from it, even if you aren't purely, interested in just the real estate portion of it. So I thought that's worth mentioning.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm. And so Sean, where can people find more about you? Where can they get the book? Where can they learn more about your money coaching services? Give us the kind of where we can reach out to you.
Sure. So you can find my book at Amazon, as well as you can find it at major bookstores such as Chapters and Indigo stores all across Canada, and you can purchase it online as well. And if you wanted to reach out to me, you can visit my website, SeanCooperWriter.com. That's all one word, and Sean is spelled Sean. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Sean Cooper Write, and I'd love to hear from you if you pick up my book. I'm hoping to kind of start a bit of, mortgage burning revolution and have other people follow in my footsteps. I don't want to be the only person to burn their mortgage. I'm hoping to get other people excited about actually paying down debt rather than, piling on more debt, because to be honest, whenever I see that statistic about the average household debt going up every quarter, last time I checked, I think it was $1.67. I mean, it definitely depresses me. So I want to hopefully see that number start to tick down, because I definitely don't think it's a good idea for Canadians to have so much debt, because interest rates may be low now, but, I don't think they're going to be low forever. I mean, to say that they're going to be low for the next 25 years or however long it takes you to pay off your mortgage, I think is a dangerous assumption to make, along with people assuming that home prices will go up forever. So, definitely, check out my book, and it will give you some food for thought, and maybe you'll reconsider your decision of, paying off your mortgage in 25 years. I mean, you don't have to pay it off in 3 years like me, but if you can maybe pay it off in 10, 15, or even 20 years, you can enjoy financial freedom that much sooner, as well as save yourself tens of thousands of dollars in interest. And I think that's definitely pretty good.
Awesome. Well, that's great, Sean. So thanks so much for coming on. Obviously, I'm going to have all the links and, to your site, to your money coaching, to your book, all of that on the show notes as well. And yeah, thanks for coming on. It's been a great chat. And have a good one.
Okay. Thanks very much, Cornell.
All right. Take care. Bye. All right, don't forget to enter the giveaway for free for a chance to win a signed copy of Sean's book. You can go to the show notes at buildwealthcanada.ca/34, so just the number 34, and there you'll find the link where you can enter the giveaway for free. And last but not least, remember to go grab your free audiobook download over at buildwealthcanada.ca/audiobook. Just go to that link, sign up for the free Audible trial, and you'll be able to get that book you always wanted for free from their library of over 180,000 titles. So once again, that link is buildwealthcanada.ca/audiobook. All right, enjoy your free book. Have a great week. Good luck on the giveaway and talk to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Build Wealth Canada podcast at www.buildwealthcanada.ca.